Okay, Brew, your reaction.
If this is accurate, and I'm sure Jeremy's report is accurate, if that player really has the pulse of the locker room, then shame on the Eagles.
Wow.
Shame on
Yikes.
the Eagles. Are you kidding me? A supernatural fun. And let's take the spookiness out of it.
Okay.
Right? To fall into a malaise for the second time in 3 seasons where you are just overcome with lethargy, where you're just dispirited. This isn't, look, if they don't win the Super Bowl, fine.
Yeah.
But if you go out there and play your best and get beat by a better team, if you go into a funk where you just don't play anything close to your potential, and you are just kind of dejected and like, I can't think of many teams, Nick, that's happened to, period. To happen to a team twice in 3 years? Now, and look, I believe Jalen Hurts is a great leader. But if this is true, you got to show it. You can't let this happen to your team every other year.
Wouldn't this be more on Sirianni than
Well,
Hurts?
I was going to get to him too, but Jalen's part of
Sure.
it. Nick Sirianni, I think he's a good coach, but you got to pull every bit of leadership that's in your body out and get these guys out of this funk. And I would throw Saquon in there too. Like, this cannot happen. Again, if you just get beat by some better teams, it's not your year, that's fine. But to just go into a malaise is unacceptable. That's not choking. That's like giving up or something like that. And I'm not saying they're quitting or anything, but I'm just saying what happened 2 years ago was hard to explain. And let me throw this in. And I don't know if this is the case.
Oh, my God.
I'm just saying, if A.J. Brown is the problem, then trade him. Trade him. You can get a lot for him. Trade him. You're not using him to his full potential anyway, and he's great. Don't get me wrong. I think he's a phenomenal player, and I don't know that he's the problem. So if he's not, of course, don't trade him. But if they know, the players and the organization know, and if this is stemming from his body language, his quotes, whatever it might be, not happy you're not getting the ball, then trade him.
So I want to kind of piggyback off that because I think we use the term funk. The quote here was the 2023 meltdown. This seems premature to be comparing it to a meltdown, to a 2-game losing streak. And that was a meltdown last year because they were 10-1.
Yeah,
they looked like 2 years ago, pardon me, the best team in football. But this is also this Eagles team, since they've been excellent, is streaky like this, where the year they went to the Super Bowl, like incredibly hot at the end of the year 3 years ago. 2 years ago, start 10-1, fall apart entirely. Last year, start off poorly and then red hot up until 2 weeks ago as far as the win-loss column goes. And then, so that part's odd to me. What's not odd to me is this, and Danny said it, I don't know what day it was. It's like, what's Philly great at right now? What's Philly good at right now other than the tush push? And it's hard to point at anything. When part of the funk was a defense that had been awesome fell apart.
Yeah.
And we can show you the defensive numbers over the last 3 years. They don't have the defense to hang their hat on. In 2023, the defense, I guess it hadn't been awesome pre-funk. It had been okay, but then it really was terrible late. Then last year, with Fangio, it was the best. This year, it's closer to 23 than it is to last year. And they can't simply just say, all right, if other things aren't working, at least Saquon's going to take care of us more often than not. And this is my concern for them holistically. I had Saquon last year had 482 touches. I said, hey, this century, as you like to say, every back who had 450 touches, what was their drop-off the next year? And it is stark.
Okay. It is stark. It is big. Kumbaya. Let's have a party. It's unbelievable that people are still struggling with this. It's unbelievable we still keep just making up narratives after all this time. Like the Eagles are just giving up in malaise and supernatural funk, or that they just fell apart in 2023. And that we can't explain it. First off, we know Nick Wright did not think the Philadelphia Eagles were a top team in the NFL in 2023. We know that. Nick actually called them one of the worst teams, and he actually said they are the worst team in that second half of 2023. And then he went on to say that's why the Eagles will do nothing in 2024. That's why he said they're not even going to make the playoffs. That the Commanders and the Dallas Cowboys will be better than them. Then, of course, they went on and won the Super Bowl. The team in 2023, it was not a supernatural funk. That team was held together with not even duct tape, but scotch tape. And the coaching on both sides of the ball was awful. Was absolutely awful. Okay? Jalen Hurts was still learning and growing, was still a very young quarterback. He was banged up as well. You had retiring you had players like Kelsey and Cox, and they're retiring. They were at the end of the road. That team was just they did everything they could in 22. They were trying to hang on in 23, and they couldn't. There was many games, as I said repeatedly. They were 10-1. They could have easily have been a 3-win team. They were just being held together. And then eventually it all broke. It's not a supernatural funk. It's not that they just decided to randomly give up. They knew that they weren't playing well enough, and they were able to come away with wins, but they knew it wasn't good enough. The coaching wasn't good enough, and there was no answers to be found. Now, this season, they are also dealing with some injuries. They're also dealing with some older players. Their O-line isn't as good as it was, whether because of injuries, age, whatever. Okay? The defense, they had to give up a lot of pieces on defense just because that's what happens when you win a Super Bowl. Other players say, I want to get paid and I'm going to go somewhere else. So you're having some of those issues a little bit. Also, Fangio has to get to work. And now you have a brand new offensive play caller who is legitimately struggling and is running an incredibly predictable offense that Lane Johnson himself is saying it's really predictable. So this is not an A.J. Brown thing. This isn't Saquon Barkley had 550 touches and what happens in this sentence. It's nothing to do with any of that. It's roster construction, injury, and coaching. So to be like, this is an indictment on the Eagles to have this happen twice in 3 years. How about twice in 3 years they went to a Super Bowl? Is that an indictment on them? Did the Rams do that? Did the Bengals do that? Did the Bills do that? No, only one team has done that, the Kansas City Chiefs. How about they won a Super Bowl last year? Did the Bills do that? Did the Ravens do that? Did the Cowboys do that? Did the 49ers do that? I don't think so. So to be like, this is an indictment on the Philadelphia Eagles and Jalen Hurts and Nick Sirianni. What? What are you even saying right now? What are we even getting at right now? It was never about the Philadelphia Eagles doing all they could to necessarily go back-to-back or something like that. I've said that from the jump. I said that the Eagles are looking at this on another 2 to 3 year window where their objective right now with this core of Jalen, of AJ, Devontae, Saquon, it's we are trying to win. If I'm Howie Roseman, it's like we are trying to win another Super Bowl within the next 2 years or so. 2, 3, from 25, 26, and 27. We are trying to get another Super Bowl. Then we're going to have to kind of rework our defense. We're going to have to rework a couple things. Obviously, we're going to need a new coach, a new coordinator, etc., etc. And they should be better right now, undeniably. But first off, the defense is kind of lacking because the defense is probably exhausted right now. They're legitimately injured. Like, when you look at rankings in the first 5-6 weeks, the points per game and stuff like that means so little. Because first off, the Dallas Cowboys reportedly have a top offense in the NFL, according to Nick Wright. All right. You went up against Jackson Dart and the New York Giants. Obviously not a great team, but that team was banged up. Jalen Carter's not there. Mitchell's not there. You're down multiple starters. And a team that is not as deep because they just won a Super Bowl are going to be significantly more reliant on their top talent. That's how it works. You're not going to have the level of depth that maybe some of these other teams have. And those other teams have not won a Super Bowl. And that's where it's funny because I got in a conversation with someone who I respect, who I like. And he was like, well, the Eagles, that's no excuse. The Eagles have to be better. And it's like, buddy, they won a Super Bowl. So I think they know what they're doing. And they've been to multiple. So this is just a necessary evil right now. And how they find their way through it, I don't have all the answers. And I'm not telling you that they can't right this ship right now either. But I do know that the foundation of righting the ship is coaching. And that is the problem when you have a brand new play caller. Because they need to have more sustained drives. They need to play better offensively. They do. They absolutely do. But when you go up against the Rams, when you go up against the Cowboys, you have definitely more of an outlier game against the New York Giants, of course. You're going to get some high scores, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Like, so defensive rankings in that narrow view. It's like, nah. Jalen Carter also wasn't even in the game against the Dallas Cowboys. This team is really reliant on their stars. Absolutely. Absolutely. And I understand why. I understand how. It makes absolute sense. And we see it again and again and again with teams over the years that win, especially win the Super Bowl. And especially if you combine that with losing coaches. But the way how we keep having this conversation just feels so forced, so absurd, and so far from reality. It wasn't hard to solve in 2023. Their defense wasn't great, and they had bad coaches on both sides of the ball. And when they were able to go 10-1, there was a little bit of luck involved, just football luck, that happens to everyone, combined with the fact that they still had some dudes, especially on offense. Jalen, AJ, Devontae, Swift, they were still able to find some ways. They had a good enough O-line that could still, get the job done. So they were able to rip off a whole bunch of wins. But that can only get you so far in the NFL. You need great coaching. Sustained greatness, the foundation of it is great coaching. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Do you think the 49ers would have been able to stay afloat with Mac Jones and a bunch of who's if Shanahan wasn't there? If they had just had no good coaching there? That they would have just been able to find a way through it? No. Not at all. And that's also the other thing. If there's moves for this defense to be able to be made, then Fangio will make them. If there's adjustments, if there's things that he will make them. If not, he just doesn't have the roster to be able to do so. Just doesn't have the talent, just doesn't have the depth. That's the benefit of having a great coach. You can do that with the Kansas City Chiefs when you got Spags and Andy, where you just know, all right, whatever the roster is, we're getting the maximum out of it. And if it's not good enough, well, then we know the talent just wasn't there. Not all teams can say that. Not all teams could say that. And you can even see the evolution of some of this, where you could take Shanahan. Last year, he did not do a good enough job with all the injuries. And Brock Purdy. He did not do a good enough job. Brock Purdy was top in the NFL, one of the higher ups, with an average depth of target and middle of the road yak. He was making his life harder for himself. And that's why all last year I pointed out that with Andy Reid, with all the injuries that the Chiefs had, they were asking Patrick Mahomes to throw a lot shorter passes. And you're just like, why are the 49ers not doing this? Now the 49ers have all their injuries this year as well. Lo and behold, they're asking Mac Jones to throw shorter passes and getting significantly more yak. He is a better coach right now, navigating all the injuries that they are than they were last year. And what's the difference? Coaching. Coaching is the difference. I just think the framing of this whole conversation is just the opposite of nuanced. And when we have these conversations, it just feels so insincere. Honestly. It really does. Think about going into this season. Someone like Nick will say, hey, I don't think this season's actually going to go that well. I think there's some major concerns. I think they've lost a lot of talent. I think there's concerns about the coaching, about the coordinator. I think this team is going to kind of struggle. Then they win, and you're just like, nah, don't think they're that good. Jalen Hurts is a problem. Blah, 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 blah. Now they lose a couple games, and it's just like, what's happening here? I can't believe they're losing. They're just falling apart right now. I mean, but I can't believe it. And it's just like, wait a second, what? What? I mean, going into the 2023 season, Nick had the Philadelphia Eagles below the Jacksonville Jaguars, the Seattle Seahawks, the Dallas Cowboys, and of course, the Kansas City Chiefs. So I don't know, man. These conversations just, I don't know. They never seem like we're ever really having the appropriate conversation at the appropriate time. And it just lacks sincerity. The various topics that we're having. Trying to invent something where it need not be. Trying to fan flames when there's no fire. Trying to downplay something that has happened in the past, specifically winning, and then trying to elevate even more so. Like, what about the Los Angeles Rams? Like, this is my point. Nick was like, this team with Matthew Stafford, they're going to be an elite top team in the NFL. They're, his whole thing with the flowers and flirting and, the whole thing. And it's just like, they lost to Mac Jones and the 49ers. Like, is anyone questioning Sean McVay's ability to rally this team? They were right there. Nick himself and Colin Cowherd, they were a play away from beating the Eagles, and they would have beaten the Commanders, and they would have been up against the Kansas City Chiefs. It was just a play away if it wasn't for that pesky Jalen Carter. Is there any, we need to have a real conversation now about the problems of Sean McVay? Why is that team not doing what it's supposed to do? Why is that offense not looking like it's supposed to look like? Why does that defense not look like it's supposed to look like? This is multiple years in a row now. This team was supposed to be able to get back to the Super Bowl. That's why they traded Stafford. It was supposed to be multiple Super Bowls. They fall short against the Detroit Lions and Jared Goff, the quarterback that you got rid of. And then you lost to Jalen Hurts, that terrible quarterback against that terrible coach. How dare you do that in the divisional round? You can't even get to the NFC Championship game. That's not okay. That's not okay at all. And now this next year, what? You lost to the Eagles? You blew this massive lead? You had a meltdown. Then you lost to Mac Jones? What play call was that on 4th down? What was that? What was that play call? What was that 2-minute drill? Back to back to back years. I mean, we're going to have some real conversations about this. We're going to have some real conversations about this. I mean, the 49ers. I mean, back to back to back to back to back to back years coming up short. Losing. I don't know, man. Those are problems. Those are serious problems. That is an indictment on that coaching staff and those quarterbacks. You got to get Puka Nacua out of the building. Got to get him out of the building. Got to get Christian McCaffrey out of the building. Just got to. Those are the rules. Remember when Shanahan fired his defensive coordinator and then his defense got even worse? And they got really lucky that the New York Jets fired his buddy and he was able to be like, okay, I'll bring Robert Saleh back. Do you see the asymmetrical way we talk about teams? How we want to say that this is an indictment if the Eagles can't get things go and listen, all teams deserve to be criticized, but it's the way in which we start fanning the flames and elevating and just can you believe, what does this say about Jalen Hurts? Nothing. It says nothing about Jalen Hurts. Nothing. What does it say about the importance of a head coach being able to actually call the plays and hire a lot? Plenty. Great. We can have a conversation about the walk-around coaches or the hiring practices of the Philadelphia Eagles and who was responsible for Kevin Patula, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, sure. We have that conversation. That's fine. Do we have to wrap it up in this whole supernatural funk nonsense and put it on an indictment and a gigantic scar on this Eagles franchise as a whole, and combine 2023 and 2025 into some just Frankenstein's monster? No. I mean, if you want to do that, make sure you do it with the 49ers and the Los Angeles Rams and, on and on we go, and all these other teams. And yeah, definitely have those conversations, but I don't see you having those conversations. And then the problem is that even when they win, there's not the praise. For instance, and this I'll end here. Right? Think about when the Eagles won the Super Bowl. It was just the downplaying and the downplaying and the downplaying and the downplaying and the downplaying. When the Los Angeles Rams won the Super Bowl, it was the genius of the Rams. It was the genius of Stafford, of McVay, of the ownership, of GM. It was genius to get OBJ, Von Miller, on and on, right? It was genius. It was brilliance. Collins, this is the best run team in the NFL. It was brilliant. Genius, brilliant, genius, brilliant, genius, brilliant, genius, brilliant. Eagles, lucky, Eagles, lucky, Eagles, lucky, Eagles, lucky. What's the difference? That's what I'm asking. Tell me, what is the difference? Because I honestly, genuinely don't know. And I reject a Philly bias, LA bias, a Jalen Hurts. Just what is the actual difference? That's what I want to know. And this will now officially be the last part, because I just remembered something else. When the Eagles won, okay, this is what's really funny. As the season was going on, the Eagles weren't a super team. Then they beat the Kansas City Chiefs, and it was, they're a super team. Okay? Now, going into this season, Nick himself is this team lost a lot of talent. They're not a super team. Now the season starts to go, and they're like, what? Jalen Hurts, you're on a super team. Nick Sirianni, you got a super team. Why can't you win? That's the issue that I have more than anything. I wish I said that about 20 minutes ago, but we got there. And for the real OGs who made it this long, you got to the real nugget. You got to the real core, the real gem of it. How things are always twisted a little bit. They're always twisted. But those are just my thoughts. I'd absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think about the Philadelphia Eagles and their potential for a meltdown, for a supernatural funk? What do you think it means? What does it not mean? Who do you blame for the issues that they're having right now? And it just is what it is, and nothing inherent to any individual, whether AJ, whether Jalen, Sirianni, whatever. Or is it just like the team's not as good right now and the coaching's not as good as right now because you lost talent and you lost a coach? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single comment, so whether you agree with me or disagree with me, either way, let's get in some discussions, let's get in some fights, but ultimately, let's just have some fun. Please do consider subscribing. We are building an amazing community here, and I absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to, something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're well on our way to doing it. Please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help with the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much. See you next time.